When Julius Caesar made his conquest of Gaul, he stated that of all the Gallic tribes, the bravest were the Belgians. The world has come to admire the pluck of this little lowland country, rich in soil, in art, and in historical tradition. These flat, low-lying lands were in ancient times covered by a vast forest, interspersed with meadows, and cut up by the rivers that empty into the North Sea. Brussels is sometimes called Little Paris. The magnificent palace erected by the late King Leopold II, monarch, art lover, and financier. The Bourse is one of the world's great financial centers. In ancient time, transportation in the Low Countries was by water. Not many years ago, heavy barges moved along where now all is bustle. This busy street is built over one of the old canals. A little American jazz makes even a sharper contrast with the sleepy old medieval town. Crowds are always interesting. This crowd speaks two languages, Flemish and French. See, the Paris papers are on sale. We have here the news girl and the newsman, but not the newsboy. If you ask for what is Brussels noted, your wife will instantly put you right. Brussels lace. Truly colossal is the Palace of Justice in Brussels. It stands on the edge of a cliff 200 feet above the lower town, and the gilded crown on the dome is 340 feet above the pavement. No cost was spared in the decoration and embellishment. In this historic central square stands that gem of Gothic architecture, the Hotel De Ville. Brussels lace in stone. Within the windowed niche of that high hall sat Brunswick's fated chieftain the night before Waterloo. There was a sound of revelry by night, and Belgium's capital had gathered then her beauty and her chivalry, and bright the lamps shone o'er fair women and brave men. This dear old flower seller loves her job. Brussels, like Paris, loves to eat and drink while sitting on the sidewalk and watching the world go by. Here is a merry group, such as you can see any day along the boulevards. The new railway station of Antwerp is one of the finest in Europe. Antwerp is progressive. She has cut broad boulevards where once were narrow streets. Who but artistic Belgians would think of putting flowers on a lamppost? All street signs in Belgium carry two languages, French, the official language, and Flemish, the native tongue of a majority of the people. Antwerp is proud of her parks. Her zoo before the war was world famous and is rapidly regaining its position. This splendid art gallery was erected properly to display the masterpieces of the famous artists of the Low Countries, Rubens, Van Dyck. Standing before the fine old city hall is this strange fountain which commemorates Brabo, the mythical hero, who defeated and cut off the hand of the giant Antigonus and threw it into the river. Hence the name Antwerp, Handwerpen, throwing the hand. Here are the Flemish, very much like you and me. Keeping the peace among them is seemingly not a toilsome duty. The Cathedral of Notre Dame is the largest and most beautiful Gothic church in the Low Countries, begun nearly 600 years ago, but as you see, the South Tower has never been completed. Antwerp has today one of the best harbors in Europe, though to reach it, ships must pass through Dutch waters on their way up the Scheldt. It was here that the mythical giant Antigonus used to stop ships and demand tribute. If any shipmaster refused, his right hand was cut off and thrown into the river, until the hero Brabo performed the same office for the giant and freed his native land from the tyrant. Through this grim gateway, we pass into the quaint old city of Bruges, once powerful and prosperous. Traffic in the olden days was almost entirely by water, and Bruges is threaded by canals like these, with graceful arched bridges. These quiet stretches of peaceful water have been deserted by the busy traffic which now teems in the harbour of Antwerp. Bruges is little and poor. She once was rich and powerful. This beautifully decorated Gothic gem, the city hall, shows again what wealth the merchant princes lavished upon their civic buildings. Civic pride was inbred. The city was their state. Their national governments are all of them new, their cities old. Here are statues of ancient rulers of the town. Each of the guilds is also represented by a figure that typifies the trade. In the marketplace of Bruges stands the belfry, old and brown, thrice consumed and thrice rebuilded. Still it watches o'er the town. Its sweet-toned carillon marks the hours with old Flemish folk tunes. Among the most charming of my memories of Europe is an afternoon spent in rowing leisurely along the network of canals of Bruges. Picture to yourselves the refreshing shades of green, the glory of the flowers. Listen to the plash of the oar, the song of the birds, and feel the all-pervading quiet in this delightful old town. How harmonious the graceful bridges, the festooned vines, not a touch of harsh modernism to break the charm. This dear old lace-maker in her quaint cap is a fit subject for the artist. Out into the countryside, here is a typical Belgian village. Straight as an arrow runs the road. On one side, a cycle path. To act as a windbreak, trees are planted along the margin. A Dog of Flanders. Have you read the delightful little story under that title? You have often heard the expression, dog-tired. The poor brute that is hauling these 4 women certainly looks it, yet how willing. The level country, fortunately, makes the task easier. The gaunt skeletons of trees, with a clump of verdure at the top, have been so trimmed to furnish faggots for cooking. There are no better farmers than the Belgians. Modern scientific methods, applied to this deep, rich, alluvial soil, bring yields of hay and grain and root crops that are beyond belief. Again, Belgian fields resound to the lowing of cattle. Belgian butter and cheese, too, are almost as famous as those of her neighbor Holland. The Flemish weavers laid the foundation of the wool trade in the lowlands. Here is a source of their raw material. But one wonders how, on land so costly, they can profitably raise sheep in competition with Australia. Windmills are characteristic of any landscape in this flat region. When the miller wishes to grind, he stretches his sails, then mans the wheel at the base, and turns the top around until the great arms face the wind. Here some ingenious lad has set a windmill to working little figures. He has them performing all the operations, perhaps, which are distasteful to him. We will let the camera help the wind make them hustle at their task. Here is a typical village street. Note the low doorway. This old lady, looking into the sunset of life, seems contented with her lot. Blessings on thee, little man.